afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Women's Association of Hilton Head Islands Author Series for 2020. This is our webinar for this month. We're very excited. In a few minutes at 5, we will officially start. And we have a New York Times best-selling author, once again, Karen White. Her newest book just came out recently, and it's called All the Ways We Said Goodbye. And I know you all are joining us as we speak. And again, so we've got about 15 minutes or so to get to know you, learn more about you, connect with you, because WAHHI cares so much about all of you. And again, we're so excited that you've joined us. I think this might be our 4th, I'm not sure, edition in our author series. I'm Robin Zimmerman, and I'll be with you to moderate this series once again in this session. So joining me now, though, is my co-host, and that is Janet Porter. Janet, good to see you again.
Hi, Robin. How are you?
I'm good. You said you had a busy day.
I did. It started out with a funeral, which was a real celebration of life, though. So that was terrific. But anyway, it's great. It's great that we have a lot of panelists on already, and I mean a lot of people in our audience already, and we've had up to 100 people in attendance at our earlier webinars. So we hope to have that again today.
Yes, and the sun has come out. It's a beautiful day in Hilton Head. It was been crazy over the last couple of days with the Hurricane Sally coming through. Good rain, though. We needed the rain, so all good. And it looks like the weather, we were just talking with Tamara earlier, weather's going to get more fallish, so it's going to start cooling down, and we have our luncheon on September 22nd. So I think the temperature is supposed to be 73 and sunny, so it should be perfect.
That's terrific.
All right, so what we like to do is, as Janet and I have done over our last webinars, we like to get to know you. We want you to participate. And so we do a little polling. And that's the neat feature of Zoom, is that we're able to ask you questions, and you can answer however you would like. And we've got answers that you can select. And all you do is you take your cursor and you go over your selection and vote for your favorite answer. And then Janet, it's all anonymous, right, Janet? And, yeah. And then Janet will give us our results. So are we ready for our first question?
We are, Robin.
All right. So our very first question is for our ladies. Again, I know you all are joining in with us. We'll officially begin at 5 o'clock, but our first question in the poll is, how are you reading your books, ladies? All right. Is it mostly printed? All printed books? Mostly books on electronic devices like a Nook or a Kindle or iPad or even a laptop, or all printed on electronic devices, or all electronic devices. So how do you read your books? Do you like to hold it? Do you like to go to an electronic device like a Kindle or a Nook or iPad, whatever? So go ahead, ladies. Again, it's anonymous, and vote. Or how are you reading your books these days?
So, Robin, we've had a lot of people participate, and I'm going to ask you, what do you think is the most common answer? What would you guess?
I'm old school, so I have to believe it is, gosh, probably not all printed books, but probably mostly printed books, and then some maybe Kindles thrown in here and there. So I'm going to go with mostly printed books.
Okay, the answer by far is mostly books on electronic devices.
Really?
Yes, and it's interesting because you remember when we did this, you and Tamara and I debated what the response would be, and you guys thought the response would be mostly printed books. But I'm a Kindle person, so I wasn't surprised at all by the results. I agree with the audience. I mostly do Kindle.
You know, it's funny. About 3 or 4 years ago, I had a Kindle and I liked it, but I still I get a newspaper. I get the Island Packet every day. I have to. Of course, I'm a PR person, so I've got to have my newspaper. I've got to have my books, my magazines, my all of that, everything I got to touch. So
yeah. So now we want to know how often people are reading, right?
Yes. So our next question is, how often are you reading your books? All right. So our answers are, the poll questions are going to come up. Here we go, ladies. as we anticipate our interview with Karen White in just a moment. Okay, are you reading every day? Are you reading almost every day? Are you reading once a week or weekly? Are you reading almost weekly? How about monthly? And what about you just don't know? So ladies, go ahead and take your cursor and select one of your answers. And we will go to Janet. Again, this is anonymous, but it's kind of fun to get to find out how our ladies are, how often they're, what kind of avid readers they might be. So Janet, what's our results?
82% of our audience says they are either reading daily or almost daily. 39% said they read daily. What a blessed life that is to read daily, isn't that? And 42% are saying almost daily. So 81% are reading that often, which, you know, we knew we had avid book readers in WAHHI, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have,
right,
you know, have this opportunity to reach people virtually. But those are great results. I mean, these are really diehard readers. They're gonna love meeting Karen White today, because she's got 39 books or something like that you could go through if you fall in love with her today.
Well, do you think, Janet, that maybe people or ladies are reading more often because of COVID and we're kind of all basically stuck inside? Or do you think that's just the routine for most of our viewers and our listeners today?
Oh, I think people are definitely reading more because of COVID. You're not having that social interaction that we so crave. And so we have an opportunity through reading to, you know, really go to another place in time, which in fact, the book we're going to be talking about today takes place in France in 3 different time periods: World War I, World War II, and then present day. And, you know, you have the ability in that book to just sink right into it and imagine, and kind of all the other world troubles kind of, you know, go away for those hours you have an opportunity to read. So I think people are definitely reading more during COVID.
And I hope that will continue. You know, once you get into the routine, once I start reading, then I want to read another book. But if I stop for a while, then I kind of get lackadaisical. But once I'm in that routine of reading, and I like to read at the same time every day, around lunch or maybe later in the afternoon. So let's hope that our readers will continue their great habits.
I don't know about you, but I've found so much more with so many of us at Hilton had to move from other places and have long distance friends. And what I have in common with so many of my long-term friends is that we're all readers. And every conversation I have, if I do a Zoom cocktail hour or whatever, you know, any of those, we're talking about, what are you reading? What would you recommend? And right. So, you know, we're so blessed with so many talented authors to keep us intellectually stimulated and entertained during this COVID problem.
I know. So that takes us to the next question, which I love this last question in our poll. It's how often, we've already done that one. Our last question is, how are you getting the majority of your books? All right, ladies. So are you going to the library? Are you getting your books through borrowing from friends and trading? Or how about through bookstores, like Barnes & Noble or a boutique bookstore that might be near you? Or finally, the last question, are you going online and getting your books from Amazon or other online venues? So ladies, those are your choices. Let's take a minute. Again, it's anonymous. Janet's gonna tally up the results. And I know what my answer is.
People are still weighing in here, so I'm going to give them a few more minutes. Okay. Anybody who's new, who's joined us, make sure you just look on the screen where it says that there's a poll in process, and click on the answer. Take your cursor up and click on the answer, and we want to hear from you as to how are you getting the majority of your books. Right. So I'm going to end the poll now, and let me share the results.
Okay, so, go for it.
45% say that they're getting the majority of their books from Amazon, or I assume where they mean another online subscriber. 32% are getting them through the library, and then the balance, 13% from borrowing and 11% from bookstores. So I do want to say, Robin, that it's my pleasure to serve on the board, the Beaufort County Board of Library, we've worked really hard on library services, and I'm pleased to report, I can't tell you the exact date, but we're going to be opening the libraries back up.
Yay!
And I mean, within days.
Good.
And we're working really hard to make
Yes.
sure that the libraries are safe spaces, but that we can continue to offer incredible services. And we're so lucky that we have gone so much online in Beaufort County, which really has enabled people to be able to have access to books. And clearly, of those options, the least expensive one is getting the books through the library. So
Right.
we encourage you to think about it. If you're not using the library, I encourage you to think about it.
Janet, I have always been a library person. I actually went by, I think on Monday, and I saw, again, it's still closed, but you can, of course, get the pickup. I guess you call the library and they'll save your book and then you just pick it up. But I cannot wait for the libraries to open. I could just spend hours in the library.
Yes, yes. Well, and our libraries are so different than the way they used to be, in that we have what's called South Carolina Lens, SC Lens. And so now, you know, if you go in and the book you want isn't there, it's a bestseller, whatever, we do all this interstate, you know,
Trading
exchange across the state. And so they can get the library for you. You may not walk out the door with it that day, but they'll call you in 3 days. And the volume, since we set up that statewide system of books that are being traded and moved around the state, is just incredible. It like doubles every year. So if you haven't explored our library in Hilton Head, I encourage you to.
Fantastic. Janet, we have a few more minutes. I want to very quickly go to the chat function, which is at either at the bottom under the toolbar or at the top, depending on your device. And we are planning the 2021 author series. So ladies, if you have any recommendations of books or authors that you would like us to consider as we move forward with our WAHHI Author Series, just go ahead, go down to the chat icon, click on it, make your recommendation of a book or an author for our upcoming 2021 series. Right, Janet?
Yes, and please, since you're all reading so much, please share not only authors you like to hear, but just books that you'd recommend. Everyone who, if you're not in the chat right now, go to the bottom or top of your website. You'll see a little icon for chat, and click on that, and then you can type in what book would you recommend to people right now. So I think we're getting feedback that people love this feature of our webinar series, the opportunity to hear from friends what book they're saying, you know, you've just got to read this. Right. So Robin, you know, the purpose of our webinars is really to expose all of our WAHHI members to new authors, and we'll be considering our recommendations, the recommendations people type in right now, as we plan our monthly authors for 2021. And I just want to say before we go that it's been a terrific opportunity to partner. In particular, this is a team effort, but it's been a terrific opportunity to partner with Linda Kennan, who's been my co-chair. And we've got a new co-chair coming in, but she's been invaluable in terms of getting great authors scheduled. So Robin, take it away.
All right, we'll see you in a few minutes. Janet will be interviewing our New York Times best-selling author in just a few moments. Well, welcome everyone. It's 5 o'clock. It is time for our Women's Association of Hilton Head Islands author series for 2020. We are in the throes of planning for 2021. We're very excited you joined us. My name is Robin Zimmerman. Of course, I'm a WAHHI member. I work in the communications team. I'll be moderating a portion of this webinar. Janet will actually be doing the interview with Karen White, New York Times best-selling author. Her latest book that came out recently is called All the Things That We Have Said, it is All the Ways We Said Goodbye, All the Ways We Said Goodbye. Again, it just came out recently. We're excited. She's actually written many, many books, and we'll hear more about that in just a moment, a little bit about her background. So we do want all of you to know that this is a webinar. It is not a Zoom meeting. Some of you have said, why couldn't we see everybody on the screen? Well, we sometimes have over 100 participants, so it gets a little crazy. So Zoom has the feature of a webinar and has a feature of a meeting. And so we've chosen to use the webinar option, which means you can see us, but we cannot see you. So again, we appreciate you being with us. We do want you to know there's that chat function at the bottom of your screen for any comments, questions, suggestions, if you're having any problems, Kathy Reynolds is our communications team chair. She will forward your questions on to our author, Karen White. And if you have any technical problems, then let Kathy know as well. And I also I think some of you know that Kathy Reynolds will be moving to Florida. And so this is her last webinar. She has been invaluable. You know, you often say you can't replace someone, and that is true. We really can't replace Kathy Reynolds. She has done an outstanding job. She's been a great communications team leader, and she has a phenomenal technological savvy. So thank you, Kathy, for all your work. And now it is time to bring in Janet Porter. She is our co-host, and she'll be interviewing our guest. And our guest's book, All the Ways We Said Goodbye, is an historical fiction. And our author is Karen White. So Janet, thank you so much for being with us, and take it away.
Thank you, Robin. I want to really thank Linda Kennan again, and say that I'm pleased to report that Diane Bush, who's a new WAHHI member, has agreed to take her place in terms of scheduling authors for us. And Nancy Fish has agreed to join our team, and we hope nothing happens on today's webinar that scares her away, because Nancy's agreed to take the place of Kathy Reynolds in terms of chatting and providing technical support. I also wanted to say that I was thinking about our author today, and I was thinking how incredible it was that a few webinars ago we asked people what they like to read, and the majority of people said they like to read historical fiction. And if you like to read historical fiction, Karen White's book today is right up your alley. And we'll talk, hopefully you'll get really excited about the book as we get a chance to talk to Karen. So, you know, I just want to say good afternoon to everyone. We are so fortunate to have Karen White with us today. This is our 4th webinar, but she's by far the most prolific author we've had to date, having published 27 books. Karen was raised in a house full of brothers, and she says that her love of books and strong female characters first began in the 3rd grade when the local librarian issued her a library card and placed The Secret of the Old Clock in her hands. Now, many of you remember that Nancy Drew mystery, or maybe you remember other Nancy Drew mysteries, but I think we can all relate to going to the library and getting that book, those books from Nancy Drew. So she wasn't in fact entirely convinced that she wanted to be an author. So Karen first had a career in business and graduated cum laude with a bachelor's in management from Tulane. But 10 years later, in a weak moment, she wrote her first book called In the Shadow of the Moon, which was published in August 2000. Since then, her books, referred to as Grit Lit, have since been nominated for numerous national contests, including the Southeastern Booksellers Alliance Fiction Book of the Year, and she's been on the New York Times bestseller list. Karen's newest novel, All the Ways We Said Goodbye, is the highly anticipated 3rd collaboration she's had with best-selling authors Lauren Willig and Beatrice William. And we're going to talk to her about writing solely as a book, and then what it's like to collaborate. She obviously likes it because this is her 3rd collaboration, and I believe they're working on a 4th one. So when not writing, Karen spends her time reading, singing, and avoiding cooking at all costs. Some of us can relate to that. I'm in that category. So Karen and her husband have 2 grown children and currently live in Atlanta, Georgia, with 2 spoiled Havanese dogs. So Karen, please join us.
Oh, unable to start video. It says the host has stopped it. I think you need to turn me back on, Jen. Oh, asked you to start your video. Okay, so start video.
There you go. Great, great. No technical snafus there. So welcome to WAHHI. We're thrilled to have you here, Karen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I wish I could be there in person, but this is pretty awesome. So thank you for having me.
So before we start today, I just want to remind all of our guests today that I'm going to be monitoring the chat and asking questions from the audience of Karen as we do this discussion over the next 30 minutes. So if you have a question that comes up, whether you're a Karen White fan or you're a newbie to her books, if you have a question, let me know and I'll try to ask her that. But first, Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I did a brief intro, but tell us more about yourself and the fact that you avoid cooking.
Oh my gosh. You know, and I know it's like where I have to give away my Southerner card because I'm hopeless in the kitchen, completely hopeless. And it's funny because both of my parents are from Mississippi. My mother, you know, huge family, was a big cook. But I blame it on her because she was always, you know, never wanted me in the kitchen. I would get in the way or whatever. So, and then she made it seem like so exhausting and it wasn't fun for her. So I sort of just avoided it. And especially nowadays, you know, we do the, what's it called? Sunbasket food delivery. My husband cooks, I clean. I would much rather clean than cook. And you know, that's how it is. But so both my parents are from Mississippi. I grew up, I'm sorry, that's my dog. She always does the squeaky toy when I'm on a meeting. But I grew up visiting my extended Southern families every summer. You know, my father was with Exxon, so we lived all over the world. The longest I lived anywhere was actually in London, England. We were there for 7 years. But my happiest childhood memories are going to Mississippi in the summertime and just hanging out with in the small Southern town where my mother grew up, Indianola, Mississippi. And, you know, eating my grandmother's cooking because she was a fabulous cook. And, you know, that was my hometown. That was what I always referred to as home. So that's my Southern background.
So tell us a little bit about what inspired you. You talk about how you had a business career, but then on a weak moment you wrote In the Shadow of the Moon. So talk a little bit about what made you think, I'm gonna give this writing thing a try.
You know, it wasn't really a conscious thought. Since I started reading, you know, with that first Nancy Drew book, I have been a voracious reader. We lived in Venezuela for a few years, and my brothers would always torture me by chasing me with iguanas or large reptiles or insects. So I always was busy looking for a place to hide. And books were my escape. I could hide under a bed or in the attic or whatever and just read for, you know, until they'd given up the search. And so they were pretty much my savior growing up. And then we moved in London, you know, and I took the tube every day to school. 9 times out of 10, I'd miss my stop because, you know, books would transport me. And we're all readers here. We know what that feels like when you have one of those books that take you to another world, a different place. You were no longer, the four walls walls around you are no longer the 4 walls that are there. And my teachers always told me that I had a great imagination. I should be a writer, but the thought of writing was so painful and horrible because you know, back in the day, when you had to handwrite everything, I found it very, very frustrating because my story would be on the 3rd chapter, whereas my handwriting would be on that first paragraph, and I would forget everything and I'd be writing really fast, and then I would get like a D- in handwriting but an A++ in content. And so I found it frustrating. I mean, like, who on earth would ever want to write? Because I didn't learn how to type until high school. And because I played piano my whole life, I had good hand-eye coordination, so I caught on really quickly. But by then, I'd already told myself that I hated to write. I loved creating stories, but I hated the process of writing. And it wasn't until I read Dinah Gabaldon's Outlander series, and I had a book hangover where I couldn't pick up another book. I heard the ghost of my 6th grade teacher in my head saying, you should be a writer. So I thought, well, gosh, I can't pick up another book. I might as well. I'm not going to tell anyone what I'm doing. I'm just going to sit down and just tell a story. And because I am a fast typist, I type about 100 words a minute now, I guess, on my laptop. I just started writing. You know, I had no goals, no deadlines. And that was my first book. I entered it into a contest where Dinah Gabaldon was the finalist judge, she was part of the prize. When I won the contest, not only did I get a written critique by her, but I also got an offer of representation from a New York literary agent. So that's kind of how it started. And that was my first book. That was In the Shadow of the Moon. Yeah.
Oh, really? And that was an excerpt from A Shadow of the Moon that you had submitted?
Yes.
Wow.
First 3
what a great encouragement early on.
I know. And, you know, because it was a time travel and I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, it didn't hit a big splash. I was so excited when I switched to Penguin Random House, that they reissued it, and it has, you know, so it continues to sell well. They sort of gave it a second life. So that was very exciting, really good news, because that book came out in 2000. Yes, I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yes,
I started
yeah.
in a crib.
Yeah, in a crib. Yeah, didn't we all? So before we're going to get to all the ways we said goodbye, but before that, I wanted just you to comment a little bit on your Trad Street series, because I think it's one of your most popular collections of books. There's 6 books, and I know you said you've just written a 7, and starring Melanie and Jack and Sophie and other characters. So do you start out with a book like that thinking, this is a book that has the opportunity to be serialized and where there would be a series? Or did you write that first book, which takes place in Charleston on Trad Street, and did you write that first book thinking it was a standalone book, and then you fell in love with the characters as the readers do and decide to read more? How does that work?
You know, I hate to throw a pail of water over everyone, but you'll notice most of my career has been sort of accidental. You know, like not really intent. Don't tell my children, because I always tell them, set goals, you know, chase them. No, I was just like falling into things, and it's worked out. So with the Trad Street series, I was happily writing my Southern women's fiction books, and I was slowly, you know, growing my audience, doing well. And I was taking a shower one day, and the character of Melanie Middleton hit me upside the head. And I was like, okay, this is weird, because she's a realtor. She sees dead people. That's why she hates old houses, even though that's how she makes her living. And I thought, well, who is her nemesis? I thought, oh, and I was kind of thinking moonlighting, you know, that back and forth between Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis. Yeah. I love that back and forth. I thought, okay, so he's a writer, and he's researching a mystery about this house. And because she hates old houses, I have to, of course, have her inherit a house. So this whole story idea is coming to me. And originally they were going to be set in New Orleans, because I went to Tulane. I knew New Orleans, great architecture, lots of history, lots of ghosts. And then Katrina happened. So I knew that there wasn't room for Katrina in that book that I had originally envisioned. And I thought maybe 2 books, you know, maybe just a single, I don't know. So I sent the idea, so Katrina happened, and then that's serendipitously, I picked Charleston, you know, again, great Southern city, lots of history, wonderful architecture, and of course, lots of ghosts. So I kind of told the idea to my agent. She's like, well, this is really different from what you've been doing. Go ahead and write it, you know, but keep writing your other books, but just let's see. And I wrote it, and I sent it to my editor, or my agent sent it to my editor. She's like, this is really good. It's very different from what you've done. And she says, you know, let's do 2. Let's do 2. I was like, okay, I can do 2. And that's all it was going to be. And I was just like, okay. So the first book came out, The House on Trad Street. It did really, really well. And I was in the process of writing the second one. Oh, and by the way, they wanted me to write 2 books a year in case my other audience wouldn't want to read these ghost books. They even suggested me changing my name, you know, so, well, because, you know, like Nora Roberts, she has her romance, and then she has her sort of science fiction books, and just not to confuse readers. But luckily, when I turned in the book, my editor said, you know, these are still very much Karen White books. They're character driven. The fact that the main character sees ghosts is just a part of her character. It's not the story. You know, so there's still the Southern family dynamics. It's pretty much Karen White with a little more humor and ghosts as a sideline. So the first book came out, it did well, and I was in the process of writing the second book. And, you know, I was tying everything up. I was in the middle of it, and I get a call from my agent saying the book's doing really well. They want you to write 2 more. So it would have been a total of 4 books. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And so, you know, that started happening, and they were selling really, really, really well. They're originally in trade paperback. Then at some point they started coming out in hardcover. And then just when I finished that 4th one, they're like, okay, can you do 3 more? I was like, all right. So the story keeps going. So by the time I got to the book you're reading right now, which is the Christmas Spirits on Trad Street, which came out in October of 2019. 19? Is that?
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
I looked at that right before I got on the call with you.
Okay, good, because I'm like, don't ask me. I don't even know what year we're, yeah, we all know it's 2020, but I don't know what month we're in. When I finished writing that one, I knew, so don't yell at me, the ending is, it's big. It's not what you're going to expect, because I knew there would be one final book. So if you're writing the penultimate book in a 7-book series, you don't want to end it with everybody happy and riding off into the sunset. You have to leave it on a little bit of a hook. There have to be things to be solved. And remember, these are character-driven books, so the characters have to come.
I just talked to Ashley.
Kathy Bennett, we can hear you. Turn off your microphone. I recognized her.
I'm so sorry.
But anyway, so I had to kind of end it like that. And people are like, I cannot believe you ended the book. I'm like, don't worry, there will be a 7th book. I just turned it in. It will be out in the fall of 2021. So in about a year, probably October.
Okay.
Now the good news, so it is the end of this series. However, my editor called and said, all right, can you do a spin-off? Because I know you want to end the series. And I was like, really? This is supposed to be one book. The first book came out in 2008. And I said, because it's very hard for me to let go of these characters. So I said, all right. And the spin-off will be set in New Orleans, very, as it should. And it will, the main character will be Nola, Jack's daughter, and Melanie's stepdaughter. Everybody loves Nola. She's a great character. So we'll take her, in a few years, and she will be living in New Orleans. And that's all I can tell you right now. But I do kind of set it up in the book I just finished, as well as a new character, Bo Ryan, his family owns an antique store on Royal Street in New Orleans. So we will be seeing them in the next one. I just need to figure out what it's going to be about so I can write it.
Well, I'm waiting in eager anticipation. So we have a couple questions that have come in.
Sure.
First of all, Elaine wants to know, because the Trad Street series is really an homage to Charleston.
Mm-hmm,
did you ever live in Charleston?
So many of my single title books are set in that area too. A lot of people think that I did. I did not. I didn't even visit when I was a child. I'd never been there. My first experience with the Low Country in Charleston was reading Pat Conroy when I was in high school. And I fell in love with it. And there was just something that called to me. So the first time I ever went there to visit, just on a family vacation with my children and my husband, it was the strangest feeling. I felt like I had been there before, like this was where I was supposed to be. And which is really funny, because my daughter has since done our genealogy and found that we had family on Meeting Street and Broad Street around the time before the American Revolution even, and through the American Revolution. So I was like, okay, there you go. So
That's where that comes from, yeah.
I guess, but I love it, yeah.
So Karen, let's get to your current book, which is 26 books later. You decided to collaborate for the 3rd time with Lauren Willig and Beatrice William. And talk about why you've chosen to collaborate with others when you've been so successful as a solo author. And I think you've got a 4th collaboration going on, don't you?
Yes, so it's so funny. So here is the first one that we did together, The Forgotten Room. And I'll tell you how that came about. But that was the one that hit the New York Times list. We are currently working on book number 4, and this is a hint. It is set in Newport, Rhode Island.
Okay.
And here is so normally we like to meet, we get together to outline the book and do a little bit of research and have some girl time, because we are very, very good friends. You can't do this with people you don't like. And so we had, on a Zoom meeting, we had to do our outline for the book.
Oh my gosh.
So that's what I'm working on right now. But so yeah, so this is our 3rd. And because I'm at my beach house in Florida, right here in the Panhandle where we had a hurricane yesterday, but we're all good. It's fine. But I forgot to bring a book, but this is the cover of All the Ways We Said Goodbye, which I love this cover. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful cover.
Yeah, yeah. And so that came out in January. It seems like yesterday, because we went on book tour and then all of a sudden COVID hit and we haven't been anywhere since. So
right.
That literally feels like yesterday. And sadly, we've had to cancel a lot of events. But, it's funny because we were all New York Times bestselling authors when we got together. The thing that we were all fans of each other's works. I was a little bit of a stalker fan for both of them because I love the way they write. And we write very differently, but we approach writing the same way, which I think a writer recognizes when they're reading a book. You know, we all bring our own strengths, but we literally met in a bar at a writers conference. The three of us were attending. We may have actually been the last people to leave the bar. But anyway, so we were just thinking, oh my gosh, you know, writing by yourself is so hard. Going on book tour, it's so hard and lonely. Wouldn't it be fun if we wrote a book together? And, you know, joking, we were like, yeah, we'll set it in Scotland. We'll call it 50 Shades of Plaid. You know, it's a win-win-win. You can't say no. Luckily, by the next morning, we'd forgotten about the Scotland angle, but we were thinking, you know, that would be like a really cool thing if we could, you know, we had no idea we'd never written a book together. We'd done a few anthologies here and there, but this is not an anthology. This is a collaboration. So it's written as if one author had done it. We had no idea how to do it. So they dragged me up to New York City. I don't like the cold, and this was March, I was freezing. But Lauren lives in New York City and Beatrice lives in Connecticut. So we met in New York City. And we just sat down, and it was the most magical experience. It's like we all knew, we checked our egos at the door. We understood this was not her book or my book. It was our book. We owned the story. We owned the characters. We didn't even pick, and we still do this, we don't pick which author creates which character until we've finished with the outline. So we literally have owned the entire process. Which makes it so much more fun. You know, we constant text chains back and forth, but the thing is, we had no idea what we were doing. We've gotten better at it now. We're more confident because now we've done it so many times. But when we start planning the book, it's like one person will say, well, what if? And the second person, instead of saying, no, that'll never work, you know, let's do this instead, we just build. We just build and build and build. So it is a true collaboration of, you know, creative minds. And it is so much fun writing with these women, and it's even more fun going on tour with them, or what we call the publisher paid girls trip. But we love talking about our books. We love writing them together. We love getting together at the beginning and at the end. We always do a get together somewhere. We especially love Palmetto Bluff. But we get together to finish up and send it into our editor. And it's been the most positive experience. It's not something that's done a lot, especially three authors. And I know our publisher took a big leap, but the books continue to sell well. So that's why we're working on book 4.
Good for you. So I think that answers Anita's question. She was asking whether you each take a character and then write that character and then merge them, or how does that work?
So we each take a character, which is usually associated with a time period, but not always. Like in The Glass Ocean, 2 of us had characters in 1915 on the Lusitania, just in 2 different storylines, 2 different classes or whatever, that their stories do intersect. So we write round robin, again, because we outline, and we do a loose outline, because in our own books, we are both seat of the pants. We are 3 of us all seat of the pants writers. We don't do outlines for our own books, but when you're writing with 2 other people, you have to. So we have a loose outline, meaning if we need to change it because it's not working for our character or whatever, we just tell the others and they just sort of adjust. So it's round robin. The person who writes the first chapter writes it and then sends it to the next person. The next person then reads what's been written and writes their part, and then we just do it by email. We don't even use something complicated like Google Docs. We literally just attach the document to an email and send it. So.
Yeah, you're not exactly the 21st century.
No, but you don't need to be. You just need to have a laptop and a Wi-Fi and you're good.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to go back to a comment you made earlier, because I want to correct something you said. You said that you were talking about on the Trad Street series. I just want to go back to, you said they're a little bit funny. They are very funny. You are a very funny writer. I mean, not only do you have this historical fiction, but I love your sense of humor. So I wanted to stick that in there. So let's talk in more detail about all the ways we said goodbye. It takes place in France. There are three main characters in three completely different time frames: World War I, World War II, and there hopefully there's no World War III. And
Oh,
World
dear
War
God,
II,
no.
World War II, and then the present day. And so
Well, not present day, 1964.
1964, right? Well, I'm old enough that seems like the present. The
You
present
are
day.
born, okay,
But,
so.
talk about your thinking about creating books like that have time travel in them, not really, but have, historical settings in such different time periods, and of course, and then connecting them. Talk about that process.
When we, for our own books or for a collaboration, we try to think of, because we all love history. We love the way historic past events inform the current events. And so we're always looking for time periods that were tumultuous, where people had to make decisions and, fraught with danger and emotion and everything else. And, with France, World War I and World War II, and the 60s, that was like, for everybody, it was, a lot of change going on. And that was sort of our thoughts about these time periods. And one of us, and again, because we don't admit to who writes what, so I can't tell you which one of us, was a real fan of World War II France, early 1900s French history, and even, before that, and then a couple of others of us are big fanatics about World War II history. And then the 1960s was pretty much new to all of us. And that's why, when I say that we're fans of different time periods, that does not mean that's the time period we choose to write. Just as much as the decision of writing together was sort of a step outside of our comfort zone, because we all believe, that if you want to be better at what you do, you need to step outside of the box. So, writing a collaboration was certainly a challenge, and something that I think we've met and we continue to get better at. But same with writing outside type. I think it really stretches your writer's muscle. It makes you a better writer. So that's why we call it, Beatrice does it a lot better, but just because there's a Southern character, for instance, doesn't mean necessarily that I wrote it. Or maybe I did write it and I'm just trying to throw you off. Or maybe I didn't write it thinking that you did think I wrote it to throw you off, but you know what I'm saying? So it's confusing, but we deliberately mislead people so you will never guess. Even our editors don't guess who writes which part, which is fabulous, because we don't want anybody to be able to tell. We want people to just look at it as if it had been written by one author.
So the beauty, though, of what you do is, if you didn't have three authors' names on the cover, you would have no sense that this was written by three different authors.
Right. And that was our goal. That was our goal. We had no idea how to do it, but I think because we own the entire story in each character, that we don't think, oh, that's her character and that's her character and that's her time period. We do it together. I think that is why we are able to merge our voices, so it does come out like it's written by one person.
So is it exciting when you open a chapter that was written, for example, about Babs, and to find out what your co-author has written about what happened?
Oh, I have to say, when my inbox bings and I see it's from, the author who is sending me the manuscript, it's my turn, I get so excited, because it's like reading a fabulous book and then being asked to participate. You know how the kid books where you're allowed to like fill in your name and stuff like that, so it becomes your book? It's like that. It's that exciting. And I just love, even though, we've done the outline or whatever, it's very loose. And to see the way these gifted authors fill in the blanks and make it alive, make it come from, a 20-page outline to this beautiful chapter. It's incredible. I mean, it's like one of the best thing about, well, next to book tour, because that really is the best thing, but reading what my co-authors have written and have set up for me is thrilling.
Wow. And does it work that the three of you then talk regularly, or do you really just do this all by email?
Are you kidding me? Well, it's text. And for a while, when COVID first started, we were having cocktail hour every Saturday for a couple of hours. But now that Lauren's homeschooling her two kids because she's in New York City, and so her time is a little more strict. But we text at least 40 times a day. Like my phone is blowing up right now. There's another text chain. Lauren and Beatrice obviously have no idea that I'm doing a Zoom call, but yeah, we are constantly in contact with each other. Not just about books, but about pretty much everything. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about. I know there were several themes, but one of the clear themes for me from reading All the Ways We Said Goodbye is about this theme of heritage and what your heritage is. So do you, in addition to writing the storyline and fleshing out the characters, do you also think about what message you wanted to give relative to a theme for the book? Do you also do that?
You know what? It's funny when we come up with the story ideas, because we don't know the characters yet or how they're going to behave. We don't really have a theme in mind, and it's normally as we start writing where we start seeing the connections. Like, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a major reveal in the World War II storyline that is crucial to what is going on. And that's when the main character Daisy has to make a decision. And I think with all of the books that we've written, it's about women who don't think they're strong, who discover that they are, that it's inside them, that that when they are challenged, they rise to the challenge, despite danger to themselves, or they rise to that challenge. And I think all of our books are like that. And I think a lot of our single titles are too. And I think it's a good message to send to, we all have daughters, but other women too, that just because circumstances have sort of, kicked you around a little bit, that doesn't mean you're not strong. You are. You will find it inside yourself to rise to the challenge and meet it. And all of these three female characters in this book certainly do. They change, they grow. And I love that in a book when the main character, even though they seem weak or, not very strong in the beginning, to watch them change and grow so that they're different people by the end of the book than they were at the beginning. To me, that makes it a worthwhile read.
So how do you pronounce the name of the woman that's the main character in World War I?
Ali.
I could.
Orally is fine.
Orally, that's what
I don't speak French at all, so.
Yeah, I wondered if you pronounced it orally. So we have Orally in World War I, Daisy in World War II, and then Babs in 1964. And you hear all of those voices their voices throughout the book. Yes. But one of the things that you do is intersperse the chapters. Mm-hmm. So is that part of your outline that you're doing it that way? Or do you kind of write it and then decide how to sequence it later?
No, when we write the outline, we write the story and who's telling that part of the story. And it just works so that it does kind of go back. Every once in a while, we'll have to do 2 chapters in one point of view. That's normally towards the end of the book when things start happening. I apologize. That's my writing assistant.
Don't apologize. I think many people on the call today have wonderful puppies. And one of the great benefits of COVID is that all the animal shelters have cleared out.
I know, right?
People have adopted all those pets, and it's the best thing to be right now is a veterinarian. My cousin's a veterinarian, and she said veterinarians across America are swamped. And people have talked to me about what they should do with investments, and I say invest in pet food. I mean, dog food, dog clothes. Yeah, exactly. Anything up that category, I think is a good investment now. So go ahead.
You'll notice we put dogs in all of our books as well because Lauren has a preschooler boy that's pretty much the same thing as a dog, and he eats everything and he's into everything. But Beatrice has beagle, and I have 2 Havanese. So we always throw dogs in our stories.
Well, and I love the fact that the dog's name in the trad series is General Lee.
Yes, yes, and he's based on my dog Quincy. I had just gotten Quincy when I started writing the book, and so that's my dog Quincy. But of course, I had to Southernize it. And then, you know, the 2 puppies that come along later are Porgy and Bess. So.
I know, I noticed that, Porgy and Bess and General Lee. I'm like, you know, I have a friend who named her dogs Punch and Judy, and you know, everybody has, you know, friends like that. So were there, besides heritage and what your heritage is, were there other themes that you wanted to come out in All the Ways We Said Goodbye?
I guess, you know, the different, you know, there are 3 different love stories going on, and they're all very different. And actually there's more than one, because Babs, she's a, we know in the beginning, she is a widow. Mm-hmm. And so we learn more about that relationship, and, you know, without giving anything away, again, it's kind of hard, you know, the love she had for her husband, as she gets older and more away from it, she realizes the flaws in it. You know, there's that first love, and sometimes that does not always, it's not reciprocated the right way or the same way, or it doesn't age as well. And then there's, you know, the you know, and I can't talk too much about Aurelie and her little love story, because, you know, you have to think, where is that going to go? You know, and it's nice to be able to dream of their future together, but there's, you know, it's World War I. We don't know what's going to happen. And, you know, I kind of like to think, again, that's part of these women's courage, is deciding to love despite the world around them. You know, yeah. I think that's, I think that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
Even Daisy.
That clearly comes across, even Daisy, because she takes a big risk having ever been widowed. So that clearly comes across, this notion of kind of going for it, you know, mm-hmm. Regardless of the circumstances. And you know, I think that spirit is so appropriate now during COVID. You know, I think every time any of us see on TV some way that people have chosen to celebrate their wedding,
yeah,
you're just uplifted by the fact that people are falling in love and going for it. I saw a story the other day where people had gotten married who'd been together 10 years and finally said, well, we're together 24 hours a day. Why don't we just go for it? You know,
right, exactly.
So, sounds good to me. So tell me about what you're excited about now.
Oh my gosh. So I'm very excited. Well, first of all, this Newport book, which will be out, no title, will be out in January of 2022, but I have to share this. So like I said, I lived in London for seven years, and I lived in this beautiful Edwardian building. And so I'm showing you the cover since I don't have it here. I lived in this beautiful Edwardian building that when we moved in, our porter, I wanted to know why some of the windows in the flat had these beautiful leaded glass windows and some were just plain. And he says, oh, during the Blitz, they were broken and they just replaced them with plain plate glass. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, people lived in this building during the Blitz. I mean, it was the first time, because we had moved from the States. It was the first time where I really had that sense of history being so tangible. And, you know, I've always, as you can tell from the Trad Street books, and all of my books always have an old building or an old house as a main character. I was born with this love of old buildings and beautiful architecture. And so when we moved into this building, that was sort of my first love. And I always wanted to write a book set in that building. And so I have, and again, it goes back and forth in time. It's 2 main characters. One is a former model from the 30s and 40s who you will recognize from All the Ways We Said Goodbye, Precious Dubose. So we get to see her in the 30s before you meet her in All the Ways We Said Goodbye. And then you meet her in modern day. She's turning 100. And my main character from two of my older books, Falling Home and After the Rain, Maddie Warner is now a freelance journalist, and she's been hired to interview Precious about her life as a model during wartime. And it's you know, so it seems very simple, but of course, as she starts interviewing Precious, she starts peeling back the layers of Precious's story. So I have to show you this cover because I think it's my prettiest cover to date. And sorry, Beatrice and Lauren are texting me, so a text will show up very quickly in a minute. But isn't that just gorgeous?
Last Night in London is the name. Oh, it is beautiful.
Okay, yeah. Lauren. But yes, that's it's just gorgeous. I'm so happy with it. And
now, how does that work? Do they send you a book cover and then you can comment?
Oh, they sent me like 400, and I was like, nope. Oh, here, let's work. And so at some point, at one point, my agent and I got we did a Zoom call with my editor, and it's like, okay, this is the right direction we need to go in. This does not work. We need to. I mean, not every author. I mean, when I first started out, they just threw whatever, you know, cover they wanted on it. But now that, you know, I'm more established and I've got a readership, so I do have my say in covers. And that was worth the fight. It really was. Well, it wasn't for the title. They won with the title, but
they did.
That is my cover.
I have to tell you, though, other authors have told me how disappointed they were in their book covers, and your book covers are terrific. So you're doing a great job. You know, you've shown several of them today,
right.
And I think they really catch your eye, which of course is if you're buying on Kindle, not so much, but if you're in a bookstore, that's what you want, right?
Right.
So thank you so much for joining us today. You know, we have hundreds of avid readers in WAHHI, and you know, for some of the other authors, everyone's chimed in about how many people have bought the book. I highly recommend people go and read All the Ways We Said Goodbye. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm actually really excited that you're taking kind of a minor character in the book, Precious, and that the next book is elaborating on that. So what you want to do is you want to read All the Ways We Said Goodbye, so that you have some backstory when you read your next collaboration.
Because there are some points in All the Ways We Said Goodbye where Precious sort of hints at a past, you know, and things that had happened to her, but she doesn't elaborate. So this is your chance to get to hear her past.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you again in the future, because we hope to be doing these webinars for a while to connect members to each other and connect members to the love of reading and to their favorite authors. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Robin, it's back to you.
Hi, Janet. For some reason, the video is not coming up. It says that the host is, oh, let me start my video. There we go. Oh, wow, what a fantastic interview. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Karen. So much energy. I will tell you this. I wrote down a few little points that I will always remember about your interview. First of all, that you write about strong women that face challenges and have courage. I loved the discussion about the collaboration and how you work that outline and write the different characters. And I mean, that is phenomenal. I love Pat Conroy, and that Pat Conroy was your inspiration. And to find out that you had ancestors from the American Revolution in Charleston, that's very cool. So thank you, Karen. We at the Women's Association of Hilton Head Island appreciate your time, and I cannot wait to read your book. I'm sorry I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to.
Well, you know, we're all stuck at home. You have plenty of time now.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now I would like to bring in our president, Tamara Averett, to talk about some upcoming webinars and upcoming events for WAHHI. Tamara, take it away.
Thanks so much, Janet and Robin, and so great to meet you and hear from you today, Karen. Just great interview and great insights. We really appreciate you coming out today and supporting our association. Our hope was that providing the author series was going to be able to connect our members who are avid readers in new and different ways, and but really beyond the book groups that everybody is involved with. And I think that we're making that happen. We really appreciate everybody's feedback on the feedback survey that you're going to get after this call. and give us a suggestion for the authors, because we are starting to do the planning for next year. We have made the decision to keep the author series going, and I think Janet introduced some of the team members that's going to continue to carry the torch forward. We have 3 awesome folks that are already lined up for the back end of the year. I can't believe we're talking about October already, but October we have John Cribb, and he's going to be talking about Old Abe, a novel. November will be Susan Messier and the Last Year of the War. And in December, it's Susan Zarenda, Bells for Eli. So those are our next 3 that you can add to your reading list. And those are all up. You'll have the Old Abe, John Cribb event registration up here shortly for you to go and log into your member resources section of the website and register for that Zoom event. Also, we are so excited about Tuesday. If you've looked at the long-term weather forecast, our picnic in the park for our luncheon with League of Women Voters and Stan Smith looks like we're going to have a great day for welcoming in fall in Hilton Head. And hopefully, if you're not able to attend, you're going to consider participating on Zoom as well. We also have announced our 60th anniversary barbecue bash. We do have a venue change for that. It's going to be at Skull Creek Boathouse's new Sunset Landing Pavilion. It's a gorgeous pavilion right on Skull Creek. Awesome barbecue, cash bar, live music with the Single Husbands Band. You and your spouse or significant other or girlfriend are more than welcome to come. So tickets are on sale now and are available. Thank you so much for coming, Karen, and also for all of our members for logging in and participating today. Back over to you, Robin.
All right. Thank you so much, Tamara. You're doing such a great job as our president during these unprecedented times. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us in this webinar with this fantastic book, All the Ways We Said Goodbye, with Karen White. Now, don't forget the book is available at Barnes & Noble and I'm sure on Amazon. So please pick it up when you can and fill out the email with the feedback. It's very important that we get your feedback as we continue our author series this year and into 2021. And in closing, I really want to say thank you to Linda Kennan and Kathy Reynolds. I am really excited for both of you and your new ventures. And we at WAHHI will always love you and we'll want to stay in touch. So I'm Robin Zimmerman. That's it for this session, this webinar with Karen White. Thanks, ladies, and hopefully we'll see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.